All right, everyone, we have two gubernatorial elections actually taking place today. I didn't know about the New Jersey race, the fact that it was even going on, probably because not really newsworthy. We already kind of know what's happening in New Jersey. There's really no hope for the Republicans there. And it doesn't really matter because, like, Chris Christie, one of the least popular politicians of modern political history, let's face it, creates his own gravity, causes famines, actually, with his eating habits, is so disliked that has managed to rub off on the Republican candidate there, who was his lieutenant governor, actually. She will lose. The Republicans have basically no chance to retain New Jersey. Who fucking cares, though? It's New Jersey. It's not like a Republican in a state that blue is going to be able to do anything meaningful. It's just going to become a problem, basically rubber stamp a budget, and then you go golfing. Of course, there's going to be political corruption. Now, not that the Democrats will fare better, because, of course, again, it's New Jersey politics. What are they generally stereotypically known for? I'm sure everything will be perfectly clean and above board. Budgets will be, ironclad. Everything will be fine. No, I don't think so. But then we have the bigger race, which is Virginia. And there, Gillespie and Northam, actually, are, fending one another off, or trying to. And it's extremely close. It's within the statistical margin of error. There's a reason that I haven't bothered to actually make a prediction in this race. The polling is so tight that it makes it impossible to make a prediction. Now, there's a caveat to that. If I trust the mainstream polling, if I assume that for that particular race the polling is more accurate than maybe the polling in the national election was, it's not off by 10 points. My thought is the Democrat wins narrowly, which, by the way, should not make the Democrats particularly happy. You only won narrowly in Virginia in the 2016 election. To go on to win narrowly in the governor's race, to retain a Democratic governor, that's not a great showing. You should be like 10 points ahead. You're always talking about how wonderful you're going to do in the Senate. This could be a bellwether for that. This is a state that it's a pretty even 50-50 sort of state. It leans very slightly blue in the last few elections. Very, in the last one, very. I think it's moving towards being red again. I think Virginia may stop being a 50-50 state and move towards being a lean red state in a few years. Including parts of the Rust Belt, they could end up becoming the new swing region. About the worst possible outlook for the Democrats, since the only part of the country reliably becoming more blue is in the Southwest, where there aren't many votes. Now, you picked up, New Mexico's no longer in play, and you kind of have picked up Nevada. Great. What is that? 16 electoral points? Oh, yeah, well, sorry. Here's Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Maybe Minnesota. Oh, yeah, and Virginia might be out of your reach now, too. Now, what a wonderful day for the DNC. By the way, to all of you who are in Virginia, do you want to see the DNC have a total nervous breakdown? Because that's one possibility. The first possibility is, hey, the Democrats held it. It's not really a win because they're just retaining what they already had, and it's really close, and it makes them look kind of lackluster. They didn't blow the Republicans out of the water like I'm sure they want to. They want to project an image of weak Republicans, disunified Republicans. Do the Virginian people want to stand up in relatively small numbers, which could be what you actually need to tip this race, and cause the DNC to suffer a mini stroke? All you have to do is get Gillespie to win. All you have to do is give it to the Republicans. I'll tell you why. Virginia is important. The Democrats do not want to lose a governorship in a state that they at least narrowly won in 2016. There's some reason to suggest that the mainstream polls may be wrong and that the local polling is a little bit more optimistic for the Republican side. One reason being, of course, in order to judge that the Democrats have even a slight advantage here in a very close race, I have to assume that the polling is not statistically biased. But some of those polling firms are using the same shitty methodology as before, so unless I assume that Virginia, which I believe the polling was off by what? It was 4 or 5 points in 2016. If they're using the same measures, well, then the Republicans are going to win. It's possible that that'll happen. but it's harder to judge. There's also a much smaller overall sample size. You got to understand the number of polls conducted for a gubernatorial race within one state, even a very important state like Virginia, a lot less than on the national. You're not getting 5-6 polling firms coming out every day and giving you a much larger, much more broad sample to actually work with. I can't make a prediction as to who is going to win this race because I can't readily determine whether the mainstream polling firms, their methodology will hold true in Virginia as opposed to maybe nationally, or it'll be only a small skew and so it won't really matter. They still eke out a win. Or whether they're still totally wrong, the local polls that several people alluded to are true, and actually the Republicans are 2 or 3 points ahead. I can't make that determination, but I encourage you to go out and vote Gillespie. Not because I don't really know anything or care anything about him. It's governor of Virginia, so I don't have a horse in the race because I don't live in Virginia. But if you don't like McAuliffe, I think he was an asshole. I do know enough about him. He's a basically Clinton insider, Mueller insider, I believe, by one step of separation, oddly. Severe anti-gunner. Yeah, I don't like the dude. So maybe it's time to maybe punish the Democrats in that state for nominating someone before that was dumb. It would cause the DNC so much chaos. To lose a race, they're looking at Trump. They're trying to convince you that Trump's approval is hovering barely above 30, maybe 35%. That he's the weakest possible president he could be. He's accomplished nothing. He's such a horrible man. And that's going to trickle down to such a weak GOP. We're going to wipe the floor with them in the U.S. Senate come the midterms. And then, despite all of this, a year out from those midterms, they managed to lose a seat that they had held before in a state that they at least narrowly held in the last election. You realize that would indicate, if everything else were true that they were saying, that would indicate movement in the Republicans' direction had begun. That would be scary for the Democrats. They're probably panicking right now. I haven't looked at any exit polls or anything like that so far. The best guess is that the Democrats have a slight advantage, assuming, again, that the mainstream polls are true. I don't know if I believe that that's necessarily the case, regardless of whether it's just a state as opposed to the nation at large, so Northam could win. But it wouldn't be by a large margin. I can't imagine that the polls are systemically skewed in the Republicans' favor because they haven't adapted their methodology in the wake of the disaster that was 2016 polling. See, the problem is most of these groups they were giving 5 or 6 extra points in some of these states to the Democrats. Even where they got it a little bit more right, it was still skewed. There was almost nowhere in the country where they skewed it in the other direction or were on the mark. There were a couple of firms that were. I'm not seeing any of their polls amalgamated here to actually look at. So, I don't know. I'm at a loss. It's going to be hard. But if the Republicans win at the end of the day, if they've taken the Virginia governor's seat, all hell's going to break loose in the DNC. They're going you at first they'll be in denial. They'll say, "Oh, well, that's too bad. It must have been the Russians," something like that. They'll pretend that it's not so meaningful. The legacy media will be a little hush-hush, a little humdrum, and not want to talk about it so much. Once they're forced to, and especially look to alt media, you'll have a lot of people who are on the left totally melting down. Look for the social justice warriors to go apeshit. And they're gonna do what they did before. They're gonna say the DNC doesn't have leadership, it doesn't have a platform, it doesn't know what it's doing. By the way, even if you win that seat, yeah, you won it by the same margin. You won it in 2016 when the polling, was wrong, and Trump and Clinton were neck and neck. Supposedly, Trump being weak is going to cause you Democrats to sweep everything up in the midterms. You can't do that if you don't have any party organization. You can't do that without a platform. It's not like when the Tea Party, because it had a platform. It had goals. You may think those goals are insane, but it had organization, and it had a platform, and it had people that were energized. That was the whole point. That's why they managed to sweep the House out of half the Democrats that were there. You don't have those advantages. All you have is the weak president, so-called, who probably is 10 points ahead of where you're polling him at. And if that's true in Virginia, even to half that extent, you will lose the governor's seat there. You realize how funny that would be? I think it would be hysterical, honestly. I'm not even a Republican. I don't care anything about Gillespie as a person, but I hope that you vote for him anyway, just to cause political chaos in this country. Oh, it'd be great. It would be almost as good as it was on the eve of the election when Trump magically, I never foresaw this at all for months, defeated Hillary Clinton. It would cause that much political firestorm, I think, among the Democrats. It would absolute panic. It'd be so great to see for at least a few days. I mean, no boredom at all. It'd be time to sit there chuckling. That's about all. Peace out.